Hello and welcome back to Carlos and Lisa. I'm Lisa Remillard.
And I'm Carlos Amesquitz. Nice to have you with us again. We hear the term mental illness thrown around a lot in the news these days. Sometimes we hear it in connection to a mass shooting. Sometimes we hear politicians debating on how to tackle this problem.
How to handle it. Yeah. Regardless, there is a stigma attached to it. It's rare that anyone wants to admit publicly that they're suffering from it or a form of it, or they just don't want to talk about it at all.
Of course, they want to avoid it. But the numbers prove someone you know is already suffering with some form of mental illness. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, 1 in 5 adults in the U.S. suffers from a mental illness each year that can be categorized as anything from depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder to mood problems, ADHD, or paranoia, just to name a few.
I mean, the list goes on and on and on if you look at it. So the conditions and treatments are, in some cases, lifelong. Mental illness can lead to cardiovascular issues and substance abuse issues as well. These mental illnesses can drive someone to suicide, and believe it or not, suicide is the second leading cause of death among people ages 10 to 34.
This is tough to talk about.
It
is. It really is, but I think it's important to talk about it, especially here on our program. We want to talk about these issues with someone who is actually living it, surviving through it. Justin Peck is a champion race car driver in the Lucas Oil Off-Road and Best in the Desert Racing Series. He's the owner of Race Pro Technologies Racing Team, and he is the author of a book called Bulletproof.
He lives with severe bipolar, addiction, and he is here to talk all about it. Hi, Justin.
Hi.
Hi, good to see you. Thank you for coming.
That's a heavy intro, I know, but a lot of that stuff is what a lot of us are living through, right?
No, I mean, the intro, you guys actually nailed it. I mean, going over the stats and going over the actual facts about what mental health is super important. I mean, you list 1 in 5 Americans, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so if you think about 1 in 5 Americans, the cancer rate on Americans is 1 in 3. The difference is the cancer rate, most people are diagnosed at the age of 50 and over for cancer, but mental illness is ranged from super young to super old. So it's insane.
Yeah. It is. And I want people to understand your story because your story is powerful. So explain to people what you've been living with your entire life, the point you decided to make a change.
Oh, geez.
Do we have 3 hours?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know. Let's the short version.
Yeah. Well, so what I do know is when I was 13 years old, I had my first manic episode. Now, of course, I didn't know what it was back then, but as I got older and kind of understood what mental illness was about or what the disorder was about, I kind of put the 1 and 1 together and it equaled 2. So how I kind of figured out about the bipolar and the mental issues was I woke up on a normal morning like I typically did. I leaned over and kissed my wife and kissed the children and went off to work. And it was just a normal, typical day.
And your work is race car driving.
Well,
right? Let's just be clear.
Yeah. Well, at that particular time, I was doing a little bit of construction stuff, and so I had the dog in the back of the truck, and we went up the canyon, and I went up the canyon to kind of just unplug for just a moment because I had been struggling with a few things in my head, and things weren't quite making sense to me. So as I get to the top of the canyon, I let the dog out of the truck, and the dog starts running around, and she's happy. And I remember just sitting there having this feeling of despair. It's like hopelessness, and I didn't understand why. And so I'm listening to my music, and I'm watching my dog, and I'm jealous of my dog because she's having a great time, and tears are flowing down my face. And in one irrational moment, I reached into the center console of my glove box and grabbed my pistol and loaded it, put it to my head and pulled the trigger.
Oh my God.
And it didn't go off, and I got lucky. And so I thought that I didn't think I loaded the gun. So I unloaded the gun, or I went to load the gun again, and the original bullet flipped out in front of my face and landed in my lap. So I pick it up and I look at it, and you can see where the firing pin had hit the back of the bullet.
Oh my God.
I have shot thousands of rounds through this pistol. Like, it's insane. And the one time that it misfired, it saves my life. This is where the craziness turns into play, because I was at a despair moment that was epic. I mean, it was things that, like, I understand why people do what they do, because it is an irrational moment. It's an irrational thought. But the second that I did that, it immediately pulled me out. So the science behind this was the adrenaline. It's the dopamine dump and the serotonin dump. Well, I was in despair. I was lacking that, all the adrenaline. And so when I actually went through that act of doing what I did, I had this massive rush, and so I felt amazing. But only for a short amount of time, because I knew that it was eventually going to come back.
Were there circumstances around your life that pointed this, or was this something that was just building up inside of you? I mean, it seemed like you had a good family, a wife who loved you, a dog, a job, a career, success.
Kids.
What's going on here?
Yeah, that's the crazy. That's the crazy is probably not the best
irrational.
word. Yeah.
Irrational.
Yeah, it's just there's no rational thinking in moments like that. Yeah. Mental illness. The funniest comment that I always get is, when I'm on suicide watch, or because I still live it. Like, that's one thing
it's lifelong.
It is. It doesn't end. It's a forever thing. But some of the things that I get a kick out of are, when people go, "Oh, it's all in your head." Yeah, I know.
Yeah, obviously.
That's
Dr. Obvious.
my brain.
Right.
That's what it is, right? And so it's funny.
So I want to know what you hope, because I know you speak about this, and obviously you wrote a book.
Yes.
Here it is, Bulletproof. It's called Bulletproof, and in lots of imagery with the book, you have that bullet.
Yes.
I want you to explain to people what you want the general public who might not deal with it or doesn't want to talk about it, what you'd like them to understand about it. About mental illness.
The biggest thing to understand is that we're no different than anybody else. It's the stat says 1 in 5. I don't believe it. I think it's a 5 in 5. Everybody's affected by some form of mental illness, whether it's a friend, a grandparent, a spouse, or yourself. Mm-hmm. Children. It's a 5 in 5 problem, and so what I'm trying to explain to people when I speak is be open about it. Be tolerant about it. When people are acting a little goofy, like I do constantly all the time, people are tolerant with me, and I really appreciate that. But I've also lived that road where the tolerance isn't there, and so it's judgment. And
the truth is, all of us have dark moments.
Absolutely.
And the dark moments are something that most of us are equipped to handle and can get through. It's those people who suffer with what you're talking about, that somehow that coping mechanism disappears, and you want to stop.
You nailed it. It's the coping mechanisms. It's whether we weren't taught as young children, or the brain just wasn't wired that way to figure out that particular coping mechanism. Yeah. And so once as we get older and we start understanding what our triggers are, that's what I did, is I understood what the triggers were. And so instead of learning the coping mechanism, I stayed away from the triggers.
Smart.
And that's kind of how I do things.
And okay, so we have so much to talk to you about. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to obviously talk about the book a little more, and we're going to talk about the racing, because I know you're racing soon. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more with Justin Peck.
Perfect.
We're continuing our very interesting conversation with Justin Peck, champion race car driver, mental health advocate, author, and what a story he has to tell.
What a story. Yeah. All right, so I want to talk about racing now, because I want to talk about why, you listed off a stat prior to this of the bones you've broken, the pins you have, and the metal plates. Why do you keep racing?
It is literally the only thing that keeps me alive. It's crazy to say that, because the list is, it's the 87 broken bones, it's the 19 surgeries, it's the plates, the rods, the screws, the concussions, all the crazy things. But when we talk about medication for mental health, right? That's one of the things I don't talk about, but what I will tell people is my medication's my helmet. Yeah. So when I take it and put it on, everything just kind of disappears, and all the chaos and all the junk and all the whatever goes away, and all the intolerance and the judgmental views of other people and how I act, it goes away, and all my focus is on the racetrack. Yeah. And so for however many hours I'm in the race car, whether it be a short time of a couple hours to a long time of a 30-hour race, I'm happy. I'm super happy, and it's super focused, and it's amazing. Yeah. I wish I could bottle that.
When did you discover that? That it was your safe place?
About 32 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. I used to do a lot of riding with my dad on the dirt bikes before he passed, and it was, man, it was the best experience ever. And I just knew that when I put the helmet on, it was safe. I guess it might be a smell association type thing. It's probably a brain thing. I'm sure it's a brain thing, but it's crazy because the helmet just reflects back to really good memories and really good times in my life. And so when I put that on, yeah, it's always it's a tribute to my dad. It's like, all right, Pops, here we go again. And
even when you wipe out and crash spectacularly,
Yes.
yeah, those are epic crashes. Okay, I also want to talk about the fact that you are quite the entrepreneur. You have your fingers in all kinds of businesses. Yeah. How did you transition your racing and your stories into this?
Well, I've kind of always lived by the motto of anything in life worth doing is worth overdoing.
Just keep on.
Anything worth doing is worth overdoing, right? Moderation is for those people who don't believe in their abilities.
Right.
So I push all of the time, and when people say this can't be done, it's challenge accepted.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I'll do it, and I've proved it time and time and time again. And I have failed way more times than I have succeeded.
Right.
I mean, I have failed thousands of times, but I'm still here kicking, and I'm still moving forward. And that's the whole idea with being a business owner or a race car driver or anything that you do in life. As long as you're making sure that you're putting one foot in front of the other, you're good.
Yeah.
So is the victory what you're shooting for? What is it you're trying to accomplish? Because you've obviously been a champion, you've won races, you've won at life, you're still here, you're still smiling. What is it that really motivates you? What drives you?
Giving, actually. So the thing I've kind of, it's not changed, but I think I've kind of always been this way, but I have this mindset that I want to be able to give more to society than I receive in payment. Mm-hmm. And it's important to me that if I can give to the youth, if I can give to helping suicide prevention, helping opiate addictions, helping all these mental problems that people are having, if I can be a voice, if I can be a support system, if I can be something that is part of that, then I'm reaching my goals.
Why can't you just be a race car driver who goes fishing afterwards?
Yeah, I have asked myself that every single time I get on stage. I'm like, oh man,
Right.
Like just take a chill pill and relax.
Yeah.
Wait, it's not done yet because you just told me you have a podcast too.
Yeah,
Yes, there you go. Okay.
Yeah. Tell me about the podcast.
Yeah, so we started the podcast about 2 months ago.
And it's called?
It's called A Racing Mind.
Perfect.
So anybody who knows anything about mental disorders, it actually fits with my racing and the crazy stuff. So, but yeah, it's great because it's a lot of banter with just me. Mm-hmm. Kind of talking to myself. It's kind of funny because it's a split personality. It's the bipolar type stuff.
Interesting.
But I've had my children on there. My daughter's on there. I've had doctors on there. We talk about everything from the.
That's a great family.
That's the fam.
Yeah, that's the family right there.
Yeah.
What a wonderful family. You have how many grandkids?
Well, I have four. I have
Jeez.
4 grandbabies.
How wonderful.
Oh my gosh, I love that picture
That's
more
a
than anything.
wonderful picture. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So you've had them on the show too. And
Yeah.
where can we hear the show? Where can we hear the podcast?
Yeah, so the it's on all platforms.
Perfect.
And then all the social media is Justin Peck 49, like on Instagram, Justin Peck on the Facebook and stuff like that.
Well, continued success. Thanks for sharing your really
Thank you.
heartfelt stories with us. That's really, really very moving.
Perfect.
Made our
The
day.
book is called
Thank
Bulletproof,
you.
a memoir by Justin Peck, a man who learned to rethink a life he wanted to end. How about that?
Incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here,
Thanks.
Justin.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Justin.
We'll be right back.